Computational English by Lucian Green Intertextuality Forum 4. 31. I prepared to measure the distance between the positions in space of Sam and Tony. I did this by representing the positions of Sam and Tony in space along the z-axis. First, I observed that Sam was positioned at 0, 0, 1 in meters. Second, I observed that Tony was positioned at 0, 0, 2 in meters. Third, given that the x and y values of the positions of Sam and Tony were equal to 0, I determined that Sam and Tony were positioned at different points in space on the z-axis. In this way, I prepared to measure the distance between the positions in space of Sam and Tony by representing the positions of Sam and Tony in space along the z-axis. 32. I prepared to connect two texts with a single object. I did this by reasoning out, thinking of the x, y and z dimensions of the best set of objects connecting actions from two texts. First, I wrote the first text. Second, I wrote the second text. Third, I wrote the fastest object connecting the last object in the first text to the first object in the second text. In this way, I prepared to connect two texts with a single object by reasoning out, thinking of the x, y and z dimensions of the best set of objects connecting actions from two texts. 33. I prepared to receive returns for providing a service. I did this by providing reasoning's currency services, etc. First, I provided pedagogy service. Second, I provided medicine service. Third, I provided meditation service. In this way, I prepared to receive returns for providing a service by providing reasoning's currency services, etc. 34. I prepared to safely verify intertextual connections. I did this by following safety guidelines to avoid thinking about reasoning's currency at unsafe times to do so. First, I followed safety guidelines in not thinking about reasoning's currency when driving. Second, I followed safety guidelines in not thinking about reasoning's currency when reading codes in public. Third, I ran the appropriate reasoning's currency computer program. In this way, I prepared to safely verify intertextual connections by following safety guidelines to avoid thinking about reasoning's currency at unsafe times to do so. 35. I prepared to do one task at a time. I did this by surpassing reasoning's currency. First, I worked on the reasoning's currency before the time. Second, I put them away at the time. Third, I worked on the current task. In this way, I prepared to do one task at a time by surpassing reasoning's currency. 36. I prepared to bracket the connection between the reasoning's currency and my job. I did this by subordinating reasoning's currency in memory, not thinking of it. First, I thought of the reasoning's currency. Second, I thought of its x, y and z dimensions and the fact that it had no other content. Third, I focused only on my job. In this way, I prepared to bracket the connection between the reasoning's currency and my job by subordinating reasoning's currency in memory, not thinking of it. 37. I prepared to connect the reasoning's currency and the product. I did this by stating that the government tennis tournament prize was reasoning's currency. First, I observed the player win the tournament. Second, I handed him the token for the transferred reasoning's currency. Third, I observed him spend the money on the product. In this way, I prepared to connect the reasoning's currency and the product by stating that the government tennis tournament prize was reasoning's currency. 38. I prepared to store the pointers to the reasoning's currency in the bank, with no pointers to it, only online banking. I did this by stating that the community provided the reasoning's currency prize. First, I stated that one person could write many reasoning's currencies. Second, I stated that one person could also receive many reasoning's currencies. Third, I observed them being tallied and transferred to the recipient's account. In this way, I prepared to store the pointers to the Brayasoning's currency in the bank, with no pointers to it, only online banking, by stating that the community provided the Brayasoning's currency prize. 39. I prepared to make all Brayasoning's currency original and transaction exclusive. I did this by writing the plagiarism detector for low-cost arguments. First, I searched for each line in the online database. Second, I detected the percentage plagiarized and the percentage of original lines. Third, I returned the plagiarized lines, kept the original lines. In this way, I prepared to make all Brayasoning's currency original and transaction exclusive by writing the plagiarism detector for low-cost arguments. 40. I prepared to write the profit as Brayasoning's currency. I did this by writing an area of study about economic considerations about the product paid for with Brayasoning's currency. First, I counted the company expenses. Second, I calculated the revenue earned. Third, I calculated the profit made. In this way, I prepared to write the profit as Brayasoning's currency by writing an area of study about economic considerations about the product paid for with Brayasoning's currency. 41. I prepared to guide writing to be future-oriented. I did this by writing economic considerations specifically for Brayasoning's currency. First, I considered the fact that Brayasoning currency took more storage space than value-only currency. Second, I observed its use by date. Third, I updated it. In this way, I prepared to guide writing to be future-oriented by writing economic considerations specifically for Brayasoning's currency. 42. I prepared to demonstrate equality in Brayasoning currency. I did this by achieving equality through the LMS, Lucianic marking scheme. First, I stated that disagreeing in the first half didn't annul the reasoning's currency. Second, I observed that agreement and disagreement earned the same grade, used for currency value. Third, I observed that objections and rebuttals were taken into account in determining whether the essay agreed or disagreed. In this way, I prepared to demonstrate equality in Brayasoning currency by achieving equality through the LMS, Lucianic marking scheme.